that's the challenge, and right brain and left brain, live together. There's a lot of little challenges like that. And you just
Yeah.
have to understand there's no rudeness. They're not just pushing you away or off or not paying attention to you or don't
Not
care what you
ignoring you.
say.
They're not there.
It's none of that. They are just focused on what they're doing. And it's it's a male thing to be very focused and do one thing at a time. It's a female thing to do multiple things at a time. It's just easier. Now, when it comes to having, what do we say, like using your mind to come up with pictures, like a roadmap where you're going to go and where you turn, you have all these pictures of what's going on, that kind of visualization, men tend to do that a lot better than the ladies. Men tend to be able to see that whole picture and how all the parts go together, and ladies don't get that. They don't see that. And it's not that they're, it's not that they don't care or they're not smart. It's just that they don't function that way visually. Female's visual cortex is smaller than the male's visual cortex. But a woman can do doing three things at once and keep track of all three of them. And a man can't do that unless he practices. Now, a man can do that if he practices. And a woman can visualize if she practices. And not that they can't do it, that it's impossible. It's just not as easy as natural for them to do that.
Uh-oh, I might be a man. I do see visual imagery really well in my mind.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my left brain partner does not. He has aphantasia. Ask him visualize an apple in his head. He says, it's black. So what do you mean it's black? Black apple? He said, no, there's no apple, there's nothing. And that's when I figured out, wow, I surely didn't understand all of that, and that caused some issues. But you know what? We both grew up a lot for it and because of it. So I'm sure it was right where it needed to be.
Yeah, but that's men can also be very sensitive and be feeling and that sort of stuff. There's a wide gamut. It's not it's not like all men are this way and all women are that way. There's a big overlap between the way men and women are and so on. But
the bell curve, the biggest part on the curve.
Yeah, we're just looking at the average, but that's kind of a typical thing. So most males tend to be more left brain. Females tend to be more right brain. But then there are some very left brain females. There's females who can be extremely left brain.
And they are very focused, and they need to be left alone when they're making toast too.
Exactly. So there's no one size fits all when it comes to gender. But there are things that usually happen on this side or usually happen on the other side under the fat part of the curve. And so girls are good at doing multiple things. I know I had a secretary, and she could be typing, holding a conversation, and have a phone stuck on her shoulder like this, and typing. And she'd be having this conversation, that conversation, and be typing. And it's like, how does she do that? I could do any one of those things, but only one.
Only one.
And only one at a time. And she just didn't, she'd be talking to a friend on the telephone. It wasn't business.
And working.
Yeah, and she was working, and she was talking to somebody about what she was going to do next, or when do you have time to type my thing? And she talked to them, type with the typewriter, and
it's really amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing that you can. But see, women need to be able to do that because women have a lot of little kids, and when you have a bunch of children, you have to be doing a whole bunch of things all at once.
Right.
You can't just focus on, one of them while the other three fall off a cliff, you gotta. Yeah, whoops. Right. You gotta keep track of what's going on with 5 or 6 different people all of the time and still get all the work done that you've got to get done.
And you're planning meals and it's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of things go on. So that's just more typically female because you're required to do multiple things at the same time. Whereas guys, the guys are out hunting and, they're trying to catch a deer or a rabbit or something, and they're all working together and they all have their job to do and they're all focused on doing their job. And they assume that everybody else in the team is doing their job, and they're very focused that they do it just right. They don't make any mistakes. Otherwise, the whole team loses, you see. So they've learned to be very focused on what they do and be very careful about it. Do it, without thinking about anything else going on. It's the same way, with guys they're more designed as guards, as warriors, as soldiers than females are, and they have to not be distracted by a big melee going on all around them, because if they're distracted by that, they're not going to survive. Yeah, they have to shut all that out, and they're just doing what they're doing, and they try to keep track of what's around them, just immediately around them, that they have to, but mostly they have to focus on just what they're doing, because to be too much engaged with the whole picture is deadly. You can't do that. You have to be focused. So males tend to, we're talking about the way our brains developed over, 200,000 years. And over those 200,000 years, it's only been the last 1,000 that hasn't been, very rural and difficult and dangerous.
Right.
Most of that time, it was
Life or death.
Yeah, and women were, had lots of babies. Matter of fact, they were pregnant, probably at least, almost once a year, or at least once every year and a half, and that's what they did. They may have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 children. All of them probably didn't survive, but they would have lots of children. And so would, the other ladies, and they help each other out. So women, women have this.
One person with 8 kids. No.
Women have this thing. It's called own group preference, which means that they make relationship with other women. For them, having relationships with other women is important. They make connections. The little girls, when they're 13 and 14, they travel around in girl gangs, right? In junior high school, right?
Mean little girl gangs.
Yeah, mean little girl gangs. But that's that own group preference thing among females. So females can be competitive, but they also need their support group. And that's very important, that they have that support group. Guys aren't like that. Guys are all individuals. They don't have that own group preference. Because they don't, and the things that they did, which was the hunting and the warring and so on, you can't get that close to people because they don't survive that long. So they're just another person is another team member, and you work with that team member, but team members come and team members go. You don't get attached. You don't get attached, and you take care of all your own business. You take care of yourself. All the males take care of themselves and do their stuff, and they don't expect any help from anybody else. The differences between male and female in a species, like humans are a species, and the males and females have differences. But some species, there's very little difference. There's not that much difference. They both do kind of the same things and act kind of the same way and have sort of the same functions. So among all the mammals, which would be our class to compare to, within all the mammals, humans have the most, I wish I could think of the word, have the most differences, gender, between male and female, the most differences. We're very different in humans. And that's because in the beginning, the reason we survived and didn't become extinct like all the other humanoids, see, it wasn't just us, and it wasn't just us and Neanderthal. There was 5 or 6 or 7 different humanoids that were out there competing for that space. And Homo sapiens, was the winner because we were more efficient. We specialized. Females had one set of things that they did. Males had a set of things that they did, and each one of them did those things well. And they were made for doing those things. Women had the babies, took care of the children, maintained the cave, They did those things. It was too dangerous for them to go out and just walk around because women were very valuable. Somebody else would grab them up and take
Oh.
them to their tribe, because where power came from, the power to survive came from, was numbers. If you had a tribe of 1,000, well, any tribe of only 100, you just take whatever you wanted, right? Because you just had 10 to 1. So you just go in, and what did you want? Well, you'd want their food, you might want their shelter, and you'd want their women. Because
That's why we're afraid of being snatched up.
because the more women you have, the more numbers you have. The more babies
Right.
you have, the more the numbers grow. So women were very valuable. You didn't ever, if one tribe is going to go over and take over another, you don't want to hurt any of the women. Women you keep, they're very valuable. They have babies. They'll make your tribe bigger, and therefore more powerful, and therefore more survivable. So women were highly valued. Men were expendable.
And they were killing them.
Yeah, so you'd get rid of all the men because you couldn't trust them that they wouldn't try to seek vengeance or whatever. So that's what would happen. So any of the woman's babies, they would go with the woman. Oh, now your tribe's going to get that much bigger, that much faster. You see? So those were the kinds of things, and that was the situation in which our instincts developed. So we specialized. We didn't have everybody doing everything. Now, a lot of the other mammals, they're like that. Almost everybody does everything, and they didn't specialize, and therefore they didn't survive as well. So the women, they specialized in having babies and taking care of them, and they were not like most of the primates are. They only come into heat like once or twice a year. Women were sexually available all the time. Oh, way more babies. Why? Because that's all they had to do. They didn't have to forage. They didn't have to hunt. They didn't have to fight. They didn't have to do any of that. All they had to do was males were doing that. So see, we broke it up into the female work and the guys' work. So the females could be more efficient at pumping out more babies so that the species survived, because they didn't have to do any of the dangerous work. They had to do those things. Women wear long hair. Why do women tend to have long hair? Because that identified them as non-combatants. You can't fight. You can't fight with long hair. Long hair is a handle.
Right.
In those days, all the fighting. In those days, all the fighting was hand to hand. It wasn't weapons at a distance, and anybody that had long hair just wasn't going to survive. Right. You had your hair cut short so that it wasn't something that somebody could get rid of. Come up behind you, grab you by the hair, and so long hair said that's a woman, a non-combatant. Okay, so that became associated with survivability. See, and the same thing with breasts. Why do women have large breasts? Any of the other primates don't. Breasts don't have to be that large. They can work just fine. They can, those chimpanzees are like, 200, 300 pounds. They're big animals, and their babies are fairly big, and they produce a lot of milk, but you don't need a large breast that protrudes to have efficient milk. That's not necessary.
That's female. Don't
exactly. They had those large breasts because they could see immediately somebody, even at 100 feet, who had a bow and arrow could see that's a woman. She's got long hair and she has breasts, because a man can grow long hair, but a man can't grow breasts. So the women that had long hair and had breasts that protruded enough that they could be seen as a woman from, say, 100 and 150 feet away, which is throwing a spear or an arrow or something, those women survived. They didn't get killed. They just got taken and they got new husbands. They got integrated into another tribe, just as any of the rest of the women in that tribe. So that's why, men like women with large breasts and long hair, because if that was his woman and she was pregnant and she had his babies, his genetic material then would go with her and survive. You see?
Right.
Whereas if she had short hair and a flat chest, she's liable to be killed as a man. And if she had his children or was pregnant with him, too bad. That ends that. So for men,
That's why
species,
hair long.
evolution,
Hair long, isn't it?
yeah, evolution has to do with each individual wanting their genetics to move forward into the
Right.
future. That's what they do. Strategies that move their genetics into the future. Now, of course, survival is key. You got to survive to move your genetics, at least survive enough that you can procreate, that you can create children, and then your genetics go. But then the woman who basically has those children and is pregnant, she has to survive. Her husband doesn't have to survive. His genetic material will go with the woman,
Right.
with the babies, you see. And like I say, women were probably pregnant almost whenever they could be. It wasn't like they could take the pill, and not get pregnant for 5 years or something. They got pregnant all the time. So in any case, that's why men like women with breasts that stick out. Now, they don't have to be so large, but the woman has to stand up straight at least and show that she's female. And you can tell she's female from a distance. Then she's safe.
Then
She
she's
won't.
safe. And in his mind, it puts her as she's safe. It's okay.
She's safe. She's going to take my genetic material, my children,
right.
And if she's pregnant, my fetus, and she's going to take that, and they're going to grow up and they're going to go forward.
Right.
So they were more survivable. So that's, if you wonder, why do men like boobs? Why do men like girls with long hair? Well,
Long hair.
that's why. That's part of
They can
our.
survive.
That's part of our. Women do their thing and we do our thing,
Yeah.
and women specialize in certain things. Men do the others. Not everybody does everything, because if everybody does everything, it sounds very egalitarian, but it's not very efficient.
No.
Because if the women are out, have to hunt and have to, march and have to fight and all that kind of stuff, well, who's taking care of the kids? Well,
Yes.
the reason, that's why let's say a chimpanzee female only comes in heat every once in a while, because basically she has to do everything. She has to go out, find her own food. She has to do all that stuff. She can't do that if she's, got babies. So she has to wait. There's a time there where she's not doing that for a while, but she can probably live long enough to get through that time, So having to do everything is not a very efficient way to go,
Not
because
really.
pregnant women shouldn't be out running around, shouldn't be out fighting or doing that. They're not going to be very good at it anyway, because being pregnant makes you out of balance and
Yeah.
tired and all kinds of other
Tired.
things. So humans were clever and they specialized to a
Right.
degree much greater than any other mammal. We have just specialized. So that's why men and women are so different, because that was what made Homo sapien the winner. It's not that Homo sapien was tough and smart and we outsmarted and killed all those other hominids. We outbred them. For every one child they had, we had 6. And most of them survived, because no matter who was killing who, the women and the babies were kept. The children were kept. All the females were kept at any age, and all the males under puberty were probably kept.
Right.
So that, that's why we survived. We had so many more children that survived that we just basically overwhelmed them genetically.
Right.
They were small, so they had little bits of, they had maybe hundreds of them, where there were tens of thousands of us. So eventually, through intermarriage with them or whatever else, we were more efficient. We outbred them.
Right.
That's why everybody has just a little bit of Neanderthal in their in their DNA someplace, because we just overwhelmed them and they became part of us.
Right.
They disappeared.
Coming with us. us.
Yeah, yeah,
You need to
right.
grow some hair and some boobs,
Yeah.
but you can, come on.
So, so we were very efficient in our making females and males, having given them different jobs. The men were to provision the women, give them the food and the shelter they needed, and to
Mhm.
protect them.
Yes,
And that was their job. They had the outside job. They'd bring in the food, they'd find the cave, they'd do all the outside work, and the women had the inside work.
the inside.
You know, they took care of the kids, they took care of the living space, but they didn't go out, because if they walked around, some other tribe saw them. Hey, that's a woman. She's valuable. Scoop her up and take her, scoop her up and take her home. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because she would have more babies and have babies for us, not for them.
dude.
Yeah. So there's a lot of basic differences between males and females. And
It's
yeah,
causing a lot of problems in marriages, and it doesn't have to be that way.
no, all you have to do is understand those differences and let them be.
Right, but
Let
most
them,
people don't know about this, Tom.
oh,
We need to have in chapter 2 on what's
yeah,
really happening here. Because
yeah.
when you know what's going on, then you can see what's happening. Because
Yeah,
if
well,
you
we've had books about. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, Gray, I think his name was. He wrote a book, maybe that's not right, called "Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus," right? And he tried to point out the differences that men and women had in just the way they interpret things. You know, something happens, men see one thing, and women see something totally different.
men
It,
and women are different. They're not the
yeah,
same.
yeah. So they're quite, yeah, the idea that the feminists had that women are just like men, other than
they're
their
not.
other
Oh
than
my
their
God.
sexual parts, you know, that's just crazy. Yeah,
That's just,
that's-
what'd you say? That's just crazy.
yeah, that's just crazy. I mean, anybody that's had both boys and girls as children,
It's children,
they know they're just totally different, and we respond to them differently. I remember reading a thing that said that if you go to look at the babies being born in a hospital, and you just look at all the little boys and girls as they go through and the attention that the nurses give them, the girls get something like 3 times as much attention as the boys. If a girl cries, somebody goes over and picks her up right away.
Yeah.
If a little boy cries, let him cry a little bit. Maybe he'll stop.
Maybe he'll stop.
You know, and if he cries long enough, or his cry gets frantic enough, then somebody will go over and do something. But you don't run and pick him up right away, because that's just the difference. So we express these differences without knowing it, you know, without having, you know, it's nothing to do with our intellect. It's just the way we're made.
Right.
So, you know, boy children learn right away that they need to solve their own problems.
Right.
No, nobody's going to come, you know, and females learn that there's always somebody there that's going to help.
Yep.
And
Funny, I saw something with little infants, and they were saying how men and women react so differently to things. And they had, you know, where you stick the star in the star hole and the round peg in the round hole and the square, right? So they had given both of the kids, none of the shapes would fit in the holes, right? And the little boy was just hammering on it, right? Just hammering on it. And the little girl was just crying.
There you go.
Oh, and he's like, I can make it fit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to a lady who had both girls and boys, and she was talking about the differences, and she said that her boy and another little boy in the neighborhood, there was actually the 3 boys, and then there was 1 bike available, so they all ran to see who'd get to the bike first. Well, the one that was fastest got the bike, and the other 2 were left out. So they wandered around a bit. They went into the garage, got out an empty garbage can, carried it down the street to where there was a hill, crawled into the garbage can, and rolled down the hill.
See?
They came home all full of bruises and scrapes and whatever, you know, 2 or 3 hours later. But that's just boys, you know.
Right.
They that's what they do. That's fun. And
Yep.
little girls would not have gotten a garbage can, called inside, and rolled down the hill. That would not be a
No.
that would not be a little girl thing to do. But
Uh-uh.
yeah, she was remarking on the difference between her girls and her boys.
Yeah,
So yes, they're very different.
they
And
are.
the thing that's interesting now is that all of that time where our instincts developed, right? Homo sapiens been walking around for 200,000 years, roughly. So for 200,000 years, up until the last 500 years, it's been pretty much the same thing. You know, life was harsh. It was violent. It
Yeah.
was, there were there was a warlord mentality as far as social configurations were basically warlord. You had somebody who had a lot of power and they made the laws, and everybody had to do that. And the people at the bottom were just not important at all. You just used them however you wanted to use them. So that was the way it was, a very violent, very rough society up until very recently, not that long ago.
Yes.
But we needed that male and female differences. That's what kept us alive and kept us going up until recent history. Now, in recent history, the world isn't that rough and mean. Women can get out of the cave and walk around and hold jobs and do things, and nobody's going to scoop them up and run them off to their tribe. Right? It's not. We don't have those things anymore. Men are not fighting in wars constantly all the time.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. We're not fighting saber-toothed tigers anymore and bears that want to share our cave. So all of that provisioning and guarding and protecting, that doesn't have the value it used to have because things have changed. We got a lot kinder, gentler time. So we need to understand that and move into that future. Women need to be able to get out of the house, to go take jobs, to get an education, to do whatever it is they can do. Whatever they can possibly do and do well, they should be able to do that and be supported doing that. And that should be fine. And men don't all have to be warriors. Some men can take care of babies too, and that's fine. So we need to just let all of that work itself out because our environment has dramatically changed and our instincts haven't. Our instincts, you see, instincts don't change on a dime. It takes instincts a long time to change. And so we're in a transition period where the environment has
fight it out until we get to a more stable place.
Yeah. So we have this transition where the old instincts don't work that well for us, but if you get crosswise with your instincts, they'll drive you crazy. If you get crosswise with your instincts, you'll feel deep inside that something's wrong, that you're not doing it right. So the women who go off and get a job and leave their babies, to daycare, they have these feelings that that's not right. They don't want to do that. They want to be with their baby. And when you get crosswise with your instinct, it makes you neurotic. It drives you crazy because you feel you're wrong. You're not doing it right. So we have to
go with mom to a work daycare there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would help. And then they get to see them off and on throughout the day. They ought to have little breaks where they could go every hour or so and spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes with them. And we need things like that. So we have to find ways that we can not get crosswise with our instincts and still enjoy the freedom to be and to do like we can. It's not that it's one or the other. We need to do both, because if you don't follow your instincts, then you'll be very unsatisfied. And eventually that dissatisfaction and feeling bad about yourself will make you neurotic. It creates fears, it creates insecurities, it creates all kinds of things. So males and females both are turning a corner. It's going to be a very long, slow corner to turn because instincts are not fast to change. They do change, but not quickly. So we need to integrate them into our everyday life. And that's not a problem. It's not that you have to obey your instincts always. You can, your intellect can say, instinct, stand down, it's not appropriate now, not here, So you can control your instincts, but you can't just deny them. You can't say, oh, they're not there. I don't feel that way. That's what drives you crazy, is the denial of them.
It's under there.
Yeah, it's under there, and it'll just make you feel inadequate if you're crosswise to them.
Right.
That's the way it is. So yeah, we have a lot to struggle with and a lot to learn. You know, we Homo sapiens now, but we should get along well with our instincts, understand them, embrace them. Say, yeah, you know, you want to be that. You need to be that, but at the same time, you don't have to be a slave to them. You can be other things as well and do other things as well. And those are lessons that we are struggling with and probably not doing all that well with right now as a species. But you know, we'll learn. We'll learn one day.
We'll learn. They're trying.
Yeah, we'll learn one day. Yeah, yeah. So we males and females are kind of programmed for different sorts of things, but we can all do all of it. You know, a man can take care of babies.
Yeah.
You know, matter of fact, when my grandson was in an intensive care, only had a third of his diaphragm, we had a bunch of nurses, all of which were very good in the intensive care.
Mm-hmm.
But the best of them all was a guy. He was a guy who was probably 30, maybe 35, and he was, I think all of us agreed, he was the best nurse in that. It was what do they call it? I don't know. There's a special. Yeah, right. NICU, right?
Neonatal intensive.
Neonatal, yeah, that was it. But he was so good with them. He was so tender and so caring. And whereas some of the other nurses was like, this is the job. You pick them up, you change the diaper, you do this, you put these wires on, you do it, and you go on to the next one. And they weren't all, he wasn't like that at all. He was slower than they were, but he was very, very caring and very, you know, he treated each one as delicate little child that needed, that needed not to feel pain, that needed to feel loved and cared, and he touched and he'd caress them. He was really good. So the best one was a male. So I know men can do that, but he's probably rare. There's probably one of those for, 500 or 1,000 that would not do very good in that role. So
females do nurturing jobs.
Yeah, and
logical women go get an engineering job.
Exactly. And we need to just accept all of that. We're just people and we can do all kinds of things. But when it comes
degree of masculine and feminine anyway.
Yeah, it's a continuum from one extreme to the other extreme and everything in the middle. And all of that is okay and good. But then we have, in our sexual relationships, we have to understand we have instincts.
Sure.
And those instincts, we need to accept them. We need not to say, I don't like that. But our culture kind of teaches us that those instincts are not good. Those instincts are bad, or those instincts need to be. Yeah. And see, that's tough then. You got a culture that puts you crosswise with your instincts, and right away, you're going to be insecure because the way you feel and the way you act are not together. You can't be authentic.
Right.
You can't be authentic male or an authentic female.
Right.
Because,
well, what those guys like looking at women. I mean, that's what I've always done. Stop doing that. But they can't. I mean, that's the thing. You're objectifying her. Well, no, he's just making sure she's safe.
No, he's not doing that either. He's looking at that woman because she's attractive. And she's sexually attractive, and he's noticing that. And that's the way, we've talked a little bit about male, female, but, the way male and females are is that men are, they will spread their seed, their genetics into any female that accepts them. Basically, if there's an attractive female and she says, okay, let's go. It's very, very difficult for any male to say, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
It's really difficult because men's instincts are that if they can impregnate 100 women, then the probability that their genetics gets moved into the future goes way up.
Right.
So that's their strategy as males, is to impregnate as many women as possible, right? So that's,
They're
you know,
cheaters.
that's
but they're
just
not, they can't help it.
that's just the way they are. That's male instinct. Okay, so
Right.
they see that pretty girl and they're going to notice her. And in their mind, they're thinking, oh, wouldn't she have, wouldn't it be fun to have sex with her? But it's nothing personal, you see.
Right.
It's just genetics. It's the way males are. Now,
Right.
females have a little different thing going on, and that is that females, they want to survive. But remember, they're in the cave, pregnant all the time. They depend on males for food and shelter and protection. So they want a male who will provide for them and protect them, right? So
Right.
they need to get pregnant and stay pregnant because that's how their genes go forward by having babies. That's how their genes go forward. So they're going to have babies all the time. And they want a man who is able to take care of them really well. So they prefer men with means. They prefer men who have power. They prefer men who, are a cut above, the rest of the men. They're looking for somebody who will really take care of them and take care of their children. Make sure their children survive, because nobody's genes go forward unless the children survive. So the man has to be somebody who will take care of them and provide and take care of the children as well. So they're looking for that guy. And when they find that guy, then they want to have sex with him, because that will pull him toward her. Because guys also have this instinct that if they have sex with a woman, they feel a connection to that woman. Now,
No.
so that woman can get that guy to like her better if she has sex with him than if she doesn't.
Right.
So the women are interested in having sex with powerful men who can provide for them. Now, because that guy probably isn't going to live that long because his job's dangerous, the woman may expect to go through 2 or 3 or more husbands at the time. Now, they didn't really have husbands and wives then, but we're just using that terminology. So she always had to have a backup plan, because if he didn't come home from the war, or if he got eaten by the tiger rather than, killed the tiger, then she needed a backup plan, because she needed somebody to take care of her. Because if she had nobody to take care of her, then she'd die and her children would die if nobody would help her survive. You see? So she keeps, even though she's got this guy, she still dresses to kill. She still dresses to show off. She still struts her stuff because she wants to keep her options open. If something happens to him, she doesn't want to have to start from scratch. She wants to already have some nice guys, powerful guys around who like her.
Yeah.
So she flirts and she makes eye contact and she smiles and she's nice to lots of guys, even though she's married and has a guy, because that's her thing. Her thing is to be sexually attractive to all men. In other words, a female wants every male to want to have sex with her. But she doesn't want to have sex with every man. She just wants every man to want to have sex with her, and then she gets to choose. You see, she always gets to choose. So the more attractive she is, the more choice she has.
Yep.
So whether she's married or not doesn't matter. She's going to dress to be attractive because that's important. She keeps that attraction. And when she runs into a male that is particularly powerful and could really provide and take care of her really, really well, if he puts moves on her, she's more inclined to have sex with him, even though she's married, outside marriage. So that infidelity she has is because she sees that he's the kind of man that she wants, and her instincts are to have sex with the kind of man that she wants. So she's inclined to have sex on the side with a man that she finds particularly attractive, which means powerful, strong, capable, smart, all those things that are survivable, you see. And the guy, so that's her strategy, to keep her genetics moving forward. Because that powerful guy means that her children are most likely to grow up and have kids. Because if he's the chief or he's something like that, he has resources, then he can make sure those kids survive and those kids get along. So see, that's her genetic track through. And if she suddenly doesn't have a man to take care of her, then her and her kids are in deep trouble.
Yep.
So she has to keep guys on, interested by being looking good. And she's inclined to have infidelities where some guy rings her bell as being particularly attractive for the reasons that she finds attractive.
Well, that's caused a
You
lot
see?
of divorces.
Yeah, but see, men now, if they run across some woman and she's available and she says, hey, I'm available, it's very hard for him to say no because his instincts say, yeah, go for it. Spread that seed as wide as you can. But now he wants his wife to be faithful to him because he doesn't want to put his energy and resources into raising somebody else's genetic material. He doesn't want to put his effort into raising.
So she's inclined to cheat. He's inclined to not let her cheat. It's a balance.
Yes, you see. So he would like her to stay faithful because that way the children he raises and gives his resources to and takes care of are his genetic material. So he doesn't want her to get pregnant by anybody else. So he'd like a wife that's faithful, but he wants to have sex with every woman that he can. Now, she wants her husband. She wants her husband to be faithful because she depends on him to take care of her. So she doesn't want some other woman to take him away and take his resources and other things. She wants him to take care of her and her children. So she wants him to be faithful to her because she knows if those other women out there who are going to offer him sex or can lead him astray. So she's pretty adamant about him just not having sex with other women because that's a path that she'll lose him and he won't be able to take care of her anymore. So you see, both would like their opposite sex to be faithful, but both have instincts to not be faithful.
Say that again?
I say both want their partner. The male wants the female wants the male. Both want their partner to be faithful, but they have instincts that go against monogamy. Right, they have instincts. The female has to stay current in all the men that are around because her man may go away and she needs somebody to take care of her. Her and her kids die if there's nobody to provide for her. And so she's always doing that. And some guy who really is attractive to her, she's going to make love with him, even though she still loves her husband. Doesn't mean she doesn't love her husband. She loves her husband just as much as always. It's just her instincts. That's the way she's made. And he is going to have sex with that woman, not because he doesn't love his wife and she loves her just as much as he always did, but because his instincts say, go for it. You see? So if we understand that that's the way men and women are, both would like the other to be faithful, but neither one really wants to be faithful because it's not in their best interest. So what do they do? Well, they sneak. They are unfaithful, and they try not to show it. They try to keep that to themselves. They try to be sneaky about it, and so that's why we have so much trouble. We have huge differences between male and female. We see the world differently. Yeah. We have different functions of what we do. Our instincts are clearly different. We both want a monogamous relationship for the other, but we tend to stray to be beyond monogamous because that's best for us individually. So you can see there's just all sorts of rooms for trouble here.
There's a lot of trip cords in this one.
There's a lot of trip cords in this one. But if you accept all of that and understand it, then instead of, the man, has an affair and the woman gets so upset and so she leaves him. You see,
Just don't be mad. Just
yeah,
tell him,
just
you stop that.
say that's just the way it is. Do you not like me anymore? Or do I need, what am I doing that's not right? But it doesn't mean he doesn't love his wife and he doesn't want to take care of her and he doesn't want to come home to her every night. It doesn't mean anything like that at all. I mean, it could mean that, but it doesn't have to mean that. And the same with the wife. If she ends up having sex with her boss because he's rich and he's powerful and he's nice and he likes her and it just rings her bell and he comes on to her and it just they're both traveling, at some other time and then whoops, that just happens and the guy just has to not come all unglued about she doesn't love him anymore or whatever. Right, that's just the way it is. That happens sometimes.
It does happen.
Doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means they're human, and this is part of the human condition. So again, embrace your instincts. Embrace them. Don't let them drive you. If you know that your spouse isn't going to like you not being faithful, well then don't be faithful. Don't be unfaithful because you don't want to hurt your spouse.
Right.
But if the situation just happens and you just get in this terrible situation where it happens anyway, well, be honest about it, and the spouse ought to be honest about it to say, okay, that was a one-off. It just happened.
Oops.
And let it go.
And let it go.
You see, it's not a big deal. Those are our instincts. So we try mostly to be monogamous, but it doesn't always work. And in a lifetime, it's almost rare for both males and females to be completely monogamous all through a relationship. That's probably in the minority. Yeah. Matter of fact, there was a person who did genetic scanning. What she did was she told them that she was scanning for a particular gene that would be unhealthy or might lead to some other kind of thing. And it was just general genetic scanning. So she just went out and scanned families because that's what her test was. So it's just random. So she did a lot of families. So she did 100, 200, 300 families. And she did the genetics, a little goo off the tongue or hair or something. I don't know what she did, but she took some of their genetic material and she did a genetic workup on them. And what she found out was that in about 10% of all the families, there were children that were not the husband's.
Wow.
But the husband
That's a
didn't.
lot.
But the husband didn't know that, and they were just that. But about 10% had children by somebody other than the husband. So, yeah, that's a lot. But you see, everything is sneaky. Everything's on the side and you don't let anybody know. So those kinds of things happen. And if you did some kind of test that you could tell how many women that a man had sex with, besides his wife, you'd probably find that was probably more than 10%.
More than right.
Yeah, it was probably something else. But so these weren't just the times that women had affairs, but these were times that women had affairs and got pregnant from them. So, it's a smaller number.
I know you.
Yeah. So in any case, you see, it's good that we either have to stay sneaky or grow up to where we can deal with the real world the way it really is. Those are the two choices. So if you're not going to grow, if you're full of fear and full of ego and that sort of thing, then you better be a good sneak because otherwise you're going to cause a lot of trouble. Or you just need to not put yourself in those situations where it gets out of hand. You have to be very careful so you don't get in that thing. Yeah. So if you had understanding and you realized how things worked, then it would be so much better because then you could be smart about it and not put yourself in those situations where you're going to hurt somebody else because you love them. You don't want to hurt them.
Right.
And you could do that, but you wouldn't feel bad about yourself that you were such a horrible person and this and that and all the guilt that comes with it. You'd realize that, okay, right, those are my instincts. That happens. Oops, yeah, that happens. And you wouldn't do that. But the worst thing is that when you're ignorant and have no idea and you're full of fear, then you have trouble. You got lots and lots of trouble.
Yeah.
And you can still try to be smart not to put in that situation, but because they are our instincts and those situations do just happen in a lifetime, there's probably a probability of at least 0.5 that it's going to happen to you in your lifetime because it's just the way it is. Then particularly with a lot of females in the workplace, that's going to make a situation where that can happen. So
The boss is in a good spot, isn't he?
yes, any powerful male is in a good spot.
Yeah,
If you have a guy who's particularly powerful,
yeah.
and at the same time, let's say he's youngish and good looking, well, he will have females saying yes,
To everything.
yes to him all the time. Because whether they're married or unmarried, he's going to get that all the time. So, we had, who was it? Clinton. We had Clinton, and he had an affair with a young girl, right? No, she wasn't that young. She was 26 or 27 or something. She was plenty old enough to be an adult and had her own mind. But so he's a good-looking guy. He's president. He's powerful. He's good-looking. He probably had offers by the day, right?
Sure.
And he's got instincts too. So the fact that happens, it's like, well, it's not a big deal. Why run him over the coals and make a huge deal out of something that is pretty much expected? It's pretty much, that's life. That's the way it is.
I'm the president, okay? Every woman wants to have sex with me. It's just the way it is.
I can't even imagine how many presidents have been promiscuous.
Oh yeah,
All of them.
yeah,
All of them.
probably all of them, because the
All
women
of
in their
them.
life and where they work and all over the rest are all going to be willing to have sex with them because they're that alpha guy who has a lot of stuff, and they're going to feel like their instincts are going to say that's somebody you want to have sex with. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
We don't accept it, and we have our culture tells us differently.
Yeah.
And our culture particularly gives women a lot of mixed messages. Our culture tells women that you need to be pretty, you need to be sexy, you need to be alluring, and you need to be prim, and you need to be proper, and you need to not do that stuff.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, right. Exactly. We give them so many mixed messages about what to be. And then we hold up, here's a supermodel, and look at her, and she's the epitome of femaleness and sexiness. And how many people can, what is she, right? So we give women so many mixed messages. You have to be a good girl. You have to not do these things, but you have to be all these things, and you have to really be them strong, but you're not supposed to do any of that. And what do? We make our girls very insecure because they don't know what to be or how to be, or if they're doing it right or doing it wrong. And, we say, you're wasting your time if you don't get a job and you stay home with kids, that's a bad thing. Or it's poor women today. They're told that almost every opportunity that they have is wrong or right or both.
Or
It's
both.
right. It's right and wrong.
It's right and wrong at the same time.
Depends on who you talk to.
Yeah. So I think a lot of women have insecurity problems because our culture makes it so hard for them to feel like I am a woman, I connect with being a woman, and I know I'm doing it right.
I'm doing it right, and it's good
It's
for me and my
really
family. And
it's really hard for a woman to feel like she's doing it right because she's got so many mixed messages, and our culture is very skitsy when it comes to, a woman's place is in the home. No, a woman's place is at work. No, a woman's place is taking care of her children. Yeah, but daycare is good enough. No, daycare isn't good enough. And all our children grow up neurotic and dysfunctional, and our families are dysfunctional. And why is that? And mom is never happy. And, 75% of all the females between 15 and 60 are taking antidepressant medicines. And, you're the provider, but, my wife makes more money than I do, and she provides for me, and she doesn't need any protection. So what is my role? What good am I? I don't have to protect her because it's a kind and gentle place we have. I don't have to provide for her because she can provide for herself. So what is my job?
stay Say
You don't have a job. Yeah, it's like you don't have a job. You're useless. You see? So they're dealing with finding their purpose in this new, environment that we're in. They're kind of left without a purpose. They
Yeah.
kind of wander around. They've got the instincts, but the
Yeah.
instincts don't really apply so much. These days you feel protective over females. So there's a female comes walking up the door you just came to, so you pull the door open for her, and she slaps you because she thinks that you're being what is it? What do you call a
Male chauvinist or?
yeah, chauvinist? Yeah, she'll call you a chauvinist.
Poor women.
Yeah,
Help
see,
them, Tom.
yeah, you see, I just kind of pointing out all the issues that we have between the way we interpret our reality, between the way of being left brain and right brain, between a very focused and a broad focus, between our sexual drives and instincts, between our culture that's completely, changing, and our environment has changed to make the instincts not work so much anymore, but we have them anyway. So that's the condition that humanity is in right now, which is why we have so much male-female dysfunction. So many marriages can't work.
No.
People don't fall in love, they fall in need with each other. We don't understand hardly anything about what we're doing when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex. It's just it's a mess. But understanding would be the first thing to get from it. If you understand, what's going on and why it's going on, then at least you can try to negotiate all the landmines, as best you can, and deal with it more positively. But it is a tough time. If you go back 500 years, women knew exactly what it is they were going to do, and what their job and position and place was. They knew exactly what that was, and it was okay. They didn't feel like they were trapped there. That was their life. They were women. That's what they did, and they were glad to do it. And same with men. But 500 years later, that's not true. But we do have to change. Obviously, we don't want to be stuck in conditions that don't exist anymore. Women need to be free to be whatever they want to be. Men need to be free to whatever they want to be. But we still need to understand our instincts and not get crossways with them, because they'll make us feel insecure and unhappy. And then we'll be miserable, and then we'll turn into, then we'll have self-pity, and then we'll end up being a victim. Yeah, but if you see it all and you realize that males and females, like any other animal, are trying to get their own genetic material moved into the future. That's what evolution is all about, right? Procreation and survival. It's all about that. So yeah, so that's the state of male, female here, and it helps you understand really things that are true, but you don't know really why they're true. Why is it that men are attracted to good-looking women? Period. It doesn't matter what else they've got or what they don't have. If they're good-looking, men are attracted to them. Women are not attracted just to men because of what they look like. I mean, they do like men that look good, but that's not the main thing that turns them on. There's other things that they're looking for that are more important. Yeah, how powerful are they? How good can they take care of you and make sure that your children survive? That sort of thing. So they're looking for different things. So why are guys so shallow that all they look at is what the body looks like? Well, that's because that's survivable. That good-looking woman, if her husband dies, she's going to get another man like that, and her children are going to survive and go on, which is his genetic material, you see? So by him liking good-looking women, that's his criteria, that they're good-looking, he is optimizing that his genetic material is going to move forward into the thing. And the fact that she has long hair and breasts, well, that just means that she's going to survive. That's a woman who's going to take your genetic material in. So you like women with breasts, you like women with long hair, and you just like women. You'd like to have sex with every woman. That's just genetics. It's the way it is. So if once we understand that, then a lot of those things that are kind of, well, we know they're true. We know men like breasts. We know men like women that are good looking. We know all of that. We know a good looking woman comes by and they just can't help it. They track, that woman. And it doesn't mean that they don't love you. That's just, they can't help that. It's just the way they are.
Right.
That's their nature.
It
But
doesn't,
it helps to understand that it's a fault. It's just a fact. And because through that 200,000 years and for 190,000 years of that, 198,000 years of that 200,000 years, this mattered. This was all survivable. This
Right.
was instincts that worked. That's why man did not go extinct, because we had these
Right.
instincts.
why
You
we-
see,
that's why
that's
we're
why
here.
the species is here.
Yes.
So once you realize that, it's only been just this little eye blink in the last 500 years or so that everything's changed.
Yeah.
Well, the instincts don't change that much. So let's live with them, face them, enjoy them.
Let's laugh at them.
Try not to get in trouble with them.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Try not to make other people unhappy. Try not to hurt other people.
Yes.
So there's times to tell your instincts to sit down and be quiet.
Right.
And there's times to let them run free.
But it's
And you
not
have to be smart about that.
right, not hurting yourself inside because you have these thoughts that aren't that in your culture are not supposed to be there. But
Right.
they are.
Right. So now you're a bad person. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's long. We're 5 o'clock now. We started at 2.
Oh my gosh.
That's 3 hours. So you're going to have to break this into a couple of,
Have to break this
nobody's
into
going to watch a
sections.
3-hour video.
I
Time flies when you're having fun.
this
Yeah.
is not TikTok material.
No. So,
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'll find some in there.
Oh, yeah.
yes. So break it up into maybe 2 or 3, 4
Okay.
episodes that are smaller so that people will actually watch it. Because if you say, oh, here's something that's only 2 hours or 3 hours long, nobody's going to watch it.
Okay, I'll break it up into some nice digestible pieces, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of really good stuff in
Oh,
there.
man,
This is
Jen.
going to help people in their relationships and everything. My gosh, it's so needed. It doesn't matter if they get upset, Tom. They'll get over it. But they'll be okay. They'll
Yeah,
grow
but
up.
you don't tell everybody everything. You don't tell people things just because it's true.
Oh no, I'm
You
not
have to
saying
tell
that.
people things that they can deal with and work with and grow from. So that's the thing. When you put it out for everybody, then some people will take it wrongly and get upset, and it won't be good for them. And that's, I feel bad about that. But other people will take it and it'll change their life and it'll be great for them.
So what
And
do?
So
Do
your
we help
perception.
the bigger group of people and then sacrifice the couple that's going to wreck?
it pretty much works out that way, because if you're going to help 100 people and you're going to, annoy 30 people, then you helped 100 people. That is the way it is. That's unfortunate. But you can't say, well, I won't help anybody because I can't help them all. I won't help anyone. Well, that's not good.
No, that's not good either. Well,
No.
so you're just going to have to make people mad. The feminists are going to be coming after you now.
I know. They probably will. I try to keep a low profile. I usually don't say all these things on video. I usually save this kind of talks for people that don't have cameras running. But in any case, I've said it to you and you've got it on video, so I guess it's out there.
It's out
That's
there.
all right.
I cannot put it out, Tom. It's up to you.
No.
You're
It's
the boss
gotta,
here. I'm just along for the ride.
no, you go ahead and put it out the way you want to. Put it in pieces though, because nobody'll you can give each piece a different title if you want, depending on what material's in it, because nobody will look at anything that's that long.
I'm gonna have so much fun with this, Tom. The first one's gonna be we all a bunch of cheaters in here. I'm gonna have so much fun.
Well, the thing is, if you're not, then you're also a bunch of cheaters if you're not doing that, because you're cheating on your own instincts.
Yes.
You're basically saying, yeah, this is me. This is the authentic me, but I'm not going to be that authentic. I'm going to be some other way.
Yeah.
Well, you can do that for a while, but not living who you are is not something you can do for a long period of time. You can't live your whole life like that. Well,
No.
maybe you can if you just happen to, live in a place where you never meet anybody else,
And And we
But-
should buy our husbands some binoculars so they can see them better when they walk by. I know you're looking. I know you want to look. Binoculars.
No, that would never
You
work
don't
because the
know
lady
where.
they were looking at would turn around and shoot them.
Oh no.
These days,
Yes,
you never know.
yeah. It's dangerous. You have to look very subtly so you don't antagonize your wife and antagonize the female you're looking at. So it's a risky business.
Oh goodness. We are such a hot mess, Tom, but we're gonna get there. We'll grow up. We're gonna grow up. But once you know more about it, it is pretty ridiculous what we got going on right now.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is. It's a lot, to contend with, but
We're doing it.
we're doing it. You have to do it. We don't have any choice. Things have
No.
changed. When the environment's changed, then you have to change the
with
way you are, and that's a slow business.
Absolutely.
It is.
You can change your instincts, but it may take 4, 5, 6, 7 generations at best, and that's if everybody's aware of it
Well,
and
right.
wants to change it. If they're not aware of it, it's going to take another 10,000 years. You see?
Us fighting.
Yeah, fighting. Right.
Yes.
But if you are aware of it, then we can probably change it, probably change those instincts to be
Yes.
more suitable to our today's environment.
Yes.
In, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 generations, they could probably change the instincts. But if you don't know, it's basically forever. Instincts will change very, very slowly. I mean, these have been almost 200,000 years in the making. You're not gonna walk away from those very easily.